Give your neighbor the very quick high five and say, we're almost there. We're almost there. Okay, you can go on. It's high five, not slap, please. All right, who wants to have a quick lunch? Tell your neighbor that we're almost there. We'll go on a quick break. You've been quite fantastic. It's been quite a long day, and some of you have been here as early as 8 a.m., so we appreciate you. We have one more. Okay. Is Jeka here? Okay, should we start? I think we'll just kick off. So we'll try and confirm her presence here. So I'll hand over to Ngozi to handle this session. Okay. Oh, much better.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Okay. Hi, I'm Ngozi. I think we'll just go right into it, given that the day is already far spent. I'll start with Shanila. You have an interesting piece of work that shows that computing can be taught to a lot younger children than we thought before, right? So just share about that work. So it also gives us some insights into how we can drive computing as a tool for learning as educators, which are teachers, parents, or whoever we have in the audience.
So I guess it's sort of worth saying that up until maybe 5 years ago, I was still a teacher, a computing teacher, which is kind of where a lot of this work came from trying to prove that you can teach computer science to much younger children. And so what I do is now I run that digital schoolhouse program. And through that, we have schools that we recruit and train. We connect them with industry, so industry can share their expertise, because industry are great at what they do. PlayStation are world leaders in, games development, as are Nintendo and Ubisoft and all of these big brand names, but they haven't got a clue about how you would engage a class of 30, 12-year-olds, and how you would teach them something, because they're not educators. That's not what they do. So it's about connecting them and sharing their expertise with teachers and bridging that gap. But yes, we call it playful learning or play-based learning. So just to cut right to it, and just to give you an example, it's about being able to teach computing through real activities, taking an abstract concept and making it very physical, concrete, and tangible. So I can teach you programming through dance or through storytelling. Quite often our workshops will start with some magic or a card game or some Lego or Play-Doh, and the list is endless. In fact, I've just come from a session where we all played this wonderful game called Cat on Your Head. And that was teaching games design and systems design and computing concepts, and yes. Sorry, I could go on. You need to stop me.
Sounds fantastic. From your own perspective, Tolu, to what extent are we actually identifying new ways to design learning, right? Because as I hear the examples, not just from Shanila, but across the world, of how people are basically designing education right now, for children, to what extent are we actually exploring that as an aspect, using technology or whatever it is that actually improves the outcomes of what we're getting out today?
And when you say we, do
Nigeria.
You mean my organization, Nigeria as a whole?
In Nigeria as a whole, and then your organization, of course.
I can't speak for all of the schools in Nigeria, but I've increasingly seen more and more people take on more innovative or creative ways of addressing these things. So, like Shanila mentioned, you'll find more schools doing some level of play before the session starts, and then connecting that to whatever learning that they want to have. I don't think it has reached the ideal pitch that it should get to, but I think as we have more of these conversations, and as we have more teacher trainings that Union Bank is doing, you'll find more people engaging with that. At ALU and the African Leadership Group as a whole, it's one of the fundamentals of how we do education. We don't think, actually what they tell you is if you're a teacher and you've been talking for 15 minutes, you've been talking for way too long. There should be a lot more activity with the students. We start all of our sessions with something called a discovery, where we use some kind of activity, whether it's rock, paper, scissors, or some count the heads or whatever it is, and then we connect that to some kind of concept. So I think it's catching on, and I'm happy about that. I think we still have a long way to go, but with forums like this, we'll definitely get there faster.
Thank you. Very quickly, please, just by show of hands, if you're a teacher, just raise your hands, just so that you're a teacher, okay? So that's like most of us, right? I wanted to ask this question because I know, I mean, like just from my experience when I was in school, teachers had like their construct, their lesson notes that they had to go through. So I don't know, sometimes I actually ask my children, I have an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I just try to tease out how much liberty that I feel based on their responses that their teachers actually have in coming up with things. Because sometimes I believe that there is, of course, there are the broader conversations of things that need to enter our curriculum, but then do you get the sense, maybe in your interactions, Shanila, with teachers in Nigeria here, do you get the sense that we actually do have that liberty to design or to incorporate new forms of thinking into our teaching?
I don't feel like I can comment on teachers here in Nigeria because while I've spoken to lots of teachers, I just don't feel I've got the credibility to do that. But what I can say is it is difficult. I understand what you're saying. There's so many constraints within the education system, and sometimes we feel that I have this syllabus that's been given to me, and I have to teach this, and there's no other way around it. And so that can be a real shackle to people and teachers' creativity. Even though you may want to deliver, you may feel that you cannot innovate and be creative. Me personally speaking, and the one thing that we did with the group of people that I started working with is, because at the time I started teaching computing to young children, the UK national curriculum was still ICT, so it was still about being a Microsoft ambassador course, and which I hated. And there our school inspection body is called Ofsted. Those are the people that can come in and rate your school's performance, and if they think you're terrible, they will literally shut you down. So our concern was at the time, it's about doing everything right for Ofsted, but I couldn't settle within myself the fact that I was, sort of teaching in this way. So it was being able to be innovative within the constraints of that syllabus, and I think there's always space to do that. I think just as a teacher, you've got to A, have the confidence, but B, a little bit of that creativity and that the motivation to do it, but the confidence to know that you can do it. I went to my head teacher and said, don't worry about Ofsted, I will have all of, they just look at paperwork and and I will prove to them that you can do this, but I will teach this the way I want to teach it. So I taught computing, but for the inspection bodies, everything was mapped to the curriculum that we were bound by. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. I think I was just going to ask, how you waded through that, because introducing something that people aren't used to will meet its own challenges. Like, people would want to see the results. As a parent, you want to see the results before you go on this exploratory journey with your child's teacher. So that's actually why I asked that. Just as I allow Ajoke to catch her breath, let's welcome, with a warm applause, let's welcome Ajoke to the panel. So in your experience, what are some of the, new approaches to learning that is actually driving the quality up, or even just the outcomes of learning based on the work that you and your institution are doing?
Thank you very much. I want to apologize for getting here late. I'm part of the team that is also coordinating the 2019 Union Bank EdTech Challenge that is happening in another room. And so, I work in communities, underserved communities. I mean, for now it's in Lagos and Ogun State. And it's technology. I'm sure we've already honed on that. And technology is one of the innovations that has helped us, that has enabled learning in new ways. However, would I say that entirely everything is new? No. I think just honing on what the last speaker said, it's the fact that as the tutor, because I'm not a qualified teacher, I'm not a professional teacher, but I found myself working with children in the last 5 years. And one of the things that got me started was the burden that children in the community that I was primarily resident were brilliant. I mean, raw intelligence. However, they had lack of access to information that seemed readily available to children in other climes. And so I thought to myself that if only these children have access to information, their minds would blow. I mean, they would be able to say, this is what is available. Because I likened it to when I was much younger, and I had access to a lot of books. James Hadley Chase, the Mills and Booms, this one, Famous Five. I mean, all of those books that made me travel across the world, even from the confines of my home in Lansing. So it was on that basis that we began that journey. We just thought, rather than just give them books, let's give them a platform. Let's have them use the devices. So it's more interesting. They have access to these e-books via tablet. And it got them to come into our learning hubs. It got them to come into our learning, oh, this is a tablet, I can access this thing. My mom is not going to restrict me from using this tablet. However, it was just to enable learning. The major, we still had to engage with them. In some cases, we had to use the indigenous language, Yoruba, because we are predominantly in the Southwest, to explain to them principles and theories that could enhance their learning. And for us, it wasn't numeracy or literacy. It was just open your mind to see the possibilities that are out there, and then you can come up with it. What I would want to emphasize is we need to, as educators, as parents, it's important for us to examine ways to ensure that our kids are learning critical thinking, because that's what I believe is most important. When a child understands how to think critically, he would use the resources that are in his environment to solve problems, to be able to think intuitively and just reach out. I mean, I'll just use one example to close. I remember when, after using, we had board game, we had tablets, and we said, you know what, some of these kids really don't like reading. And, well, it's not a crime if you are not immersed in a storybook. Let's have board games. So we started teaching them chess, Scrabble, and Monopoly. And one of them was playing Monopoly one day, and he said, oh my goodness, this is the profit and loss they were teaching us in business studies. I said, exactly. He said, now I understand it. So, I mean, it was a beautiful moment. I was like, thank you, you're able to connect what's happening in your classroom with a board game. And I think that's just what I want to say, that we need to be open to the possibility. We need to understand the children that we're working with, and we need to not let the seeming barriers that are obvious to us debar us from doing what we're passionate about.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Speaking about barriers, I would ask this, I guess, in this way. Do you think that, I guess, your social status, right, is a barrier, right, to breaking into a new form of learning? Right, because just in the earlier session, we talked about deploying technology, and one of the speakers was talking about the fact that when you think about technologies, there's the enablement from the side of the user, there's the enablement from the side of the person who's actually passing across the learning. So do you think that social economic factors really within Nigeria are still barring us from breaking into the new level, in terms of digital learning or new forms of learning?
Okay. No, it's fine. I will say yes. When I think about the levels that we are with technology here in Nigeria and how we incorporate that in our education, and I hear about some countries that are using completely AI-enabled simulations to teach people how to fly planes, I'm like, we have a long way to go. Mm-hmm. That can be really scary. I know you will hear this, and I hope it's actually true for us, but that we started later on means that we can potentially leapfrog, because then we don't have to build from scratch by ourselves. We just copy and paste from a place, modify to use how we need, and then implement that. So I do agree that we're still behind based on just where we are as a country, the economic situations of the average person, but that shouldn't be a deterrent. That should actually urge us on, because now the world is a global village. You can find almost anything if you just Google it. And I know I'm taking for granted that anybody can get a tablet, but that's why you're here, right? To help us with the tablet, so it's fine. I know I'm taking for granted that everybody can go online and Google, but I think there's now an uprise of organizations like yours who are providing access to education, technological tools for education. I know there's also this company called STEM Cafe that's doing something similar for kids. So there's a lot of them out there, and I think we should use that as an opportunity, highlight what they're doing a lot more, and show that we're quote and unquote behind now. Doesn't mean that we'll stay there, because the Western world has done the hard work for us. All we need to do now is just jump on that and keep going.
Basically, plug and play. Finally, as we come down the home stretch, Shanila, in your, I guess, assessment of where Nigeria is, maybe just by the limited interactions that you have had, what do we need to do to accelerate the adoption of new and more relevant forms of learning that are actually equipping children with the skills that they require for today and for tomorrow? Because let me quickly map back to the fact that this is the future forward. And sometimes when we look at the past, we look at the future and look at where others have gotten to, you think about Nigeria as a whole, and then you wonder how we get there. So when we see models and frameworks that have actually played out and work in other environments, we actually want to know how we can accelerate development on our own within education in Nigeria.
I think there's a sort of couple of things in that. I think there's always, you know, where do we want to be? Where does Nigeria want to be as an educational state? And what should education look like so aspirationally? And you know, when you start to think about down that route, you might say, actually, you know, there's a lot of things that sort of need to be done. I sort of really like listening to the Minister of Education this morning, who was talking about, you know, putting a laptop with every teacher, and you know, if they can make even half of that happen, I think that would be very instrumental in making a huge difference. But we can't wait for those things. I think the danger is, as an educator, if you say, yes, there's a lot wrong with education, and when this is fixed, and this is fixed, and this is fixed, then we'll be where we want to be. And that's great, and we should aspire to that, and we should try and achieve those goals. But if we're waiting for that to happen, that might be 5 years down the line. What about the millions of children going through education within this period? It means they're missing out. So I think while we should always look aspirationally, and Nigeria should look aspirationally about what is our ideal, let's be ambitious. Don't think about any other kind of limitations. In an ideal world, what do we want our education system to look like, regardless of any obstacles and challenges? And then map that out in the journey on how to achieve that. Start with the long-term vision, and then the path to achieving that vision and goal. But in the meantime, work within what we have. I've learned to do that myself as a teacher. You know, you can teach computing without computers. It's not ideal, but it can be done. And at least it's a starting point. And I think if you can introduce the concepts and I totally agree with you about the critical thinking, computational thinking, problem solving. If we can teach children to think outside the box, to solve problems effectively, to be able to embed some of those principles, that goes a long way for them to become those innovators and solving those problems themselves in the meantime. And that, you know, they can do a lot with that until we get to that point in the future where we can put that tech in the hands of every child and teacher in the schools.
May I just add in? Okay. Thank you very much for that. I think what just came to mind as you were speaking is bearing in mind also that there's not one-size-fits-all approach. Nigeria is a very interesting country with an interesting geography. The way learning happens here in the Southwest, we cannot take it for granted that that's how it happens in the North. We need to also, as educators, as people who are in the learning space, we also need to open our minds to understand what is happening in the context that we're working. So, I mean, your example about you can teach computer without an actual computer. In Nigeria, there are actually some schools who are actually in the future, who are almost at par with the schools that are in the West and the likes. However, if you're working in a local community and this is what you have, this is the reality of the children, you should help them to use what's their actual reality to connect with the global village. Let's not, let's not celebrate our weaknesses. However, let's see it as like a tool to help us move on to that next level. Let's not also think that everything that is happening in the West is what we want to bring here, and just, we need to identify what the issues are within context and then adapt those solutions to fit into what works for us. Yeah.
And I'd say I wouldn't even, they're not even weaknesses, they're the unique points of Nigeria. So I'd say capitalize on them and use that to hook in the children. It's as simple as that. You know, it's just, you know, what are the kids connecting with? What are they learning with? What appeals to them? What do they know? What do they understand? Let's capitalize on that as an educator and use that as the vehicle for delivering our learning.
Absolutely. Instead of trying to steer them into a new path and creating more hassle for the children. I find that very useful. Tolu, any final comments before we round up?
Oh, I was just, as this conversation was happening, I was just thinking about the role of teachers in all of this. And I mean, I'm biased towards entrepreneurship. So I don't think of entrepreneurship as just as starting your own business, but I think of it as a way of thinking through things. So how can you use limited resources to get the maximum output? And I was just thinking about the roles of teachers in making that happen. So when you talk about the things, how we can get to our ideal state in Nigeria, you can't do that without the teachers feeling empowered to make those modifications or those adaptations that you talk about, to understand where their students are and where they need to go to. So I guess this is my clarion cry to think more about the teachers. Teachers feel more empowered about what you're doing and that you can effect change. That you know the syllabus is great, but how can you adapt that to your own unique situation and feel that you have the power to change the life of your students through the limited resources you have?
Thank you so much. I think one resounding point to take from this panel is you need to own, right, as an educator, and I think we have most of the room filled with educators, but I think we need to own that process of designing. The one reason why I try to ask questions on like a broad level, which is at the Nigerian level, is that I understand that we have our challenges and we have our constraints, but I do find the fact that in every school, it's almost like once you go into the school, you almost know that one teacher or that one educator who you're looking for to your child passing through their class. And they're basically working off the same curriculum, but that teacher has been able to do something, design that learning experience, and make it so engaging and make it so enlightening that parents even look forward to their child passing through their class. So we have the liberty. I think I also hear that we need to be bold, and I feel like in the long run, like we have also explained, the impact and then the results will show. And of course, at the end of the day, others will then come on board. So thank you once again to Shanila, to Tolu and Ajoke for joining us on this panel today. Thank you so much. And thank you, our wonderful audience, for being as wonderful as you have been all day long. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ngozi, and our panelists once again. We have the EdTech finals. There's a pitch and presentation of 3 finalists through a series of competitions that have taken place. We hopefully will get them in here from the other hall. But just some additional information, what's happening in the exhibition center. In stage 2, we have the You2 Are a Brand session or class going on, and it's being taught by Ayo Dotun Rotimi Akinfenwa. If you're interested in that, that one is ongoing. Then also the EdTech presentations are still on the way, so hopefully once they're done with that, I just got word that we'll be able to get them here so we can see and hear from the finalists as well. I think for now we're almost done, and we also have a dance presentation to cap up today. For those of you who know somebody that knows someone, there's still day 2, and of course the activities are all lined up in your program of events. The teachers training sessions will kick off, and then we have various panel sessions, panelists, and of course breakout sessions as well. Looking forward to that one. There's one in particular, which is the creativity, the new currency. That panel will definitely shed more light on the role and the importance of creativity in this new age. Some say that is the new currency when it comes to education and wealth. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for sticking around, for being here. And of course, it has been quite a very cold day in Lagos today. So please make sure you head over to the food court and hydrate yourself. But before then, please just take some time out. We'll have some music for you while we wait for our EduTech finalists to make their presentation. I'll go get some more information on that as well. I want to take this time to say a big thank you to our partners, Maggie, Onward, Bolt, Lacasera, Indomie, Golden Morn, STEM Mets. Thank you so much for that. 3 Crowns, Bolt, for providing great discounts with rides. Bonvita, that's on Cadbury. iRead is also there. Thank you very much for that. Over to the gentlemen of the multimedia to see if they can just put up some material there for you to watch. I've been told now that they're rounding up the presentation so that we can have the pitch for the EduTech finals right here.
No more you freaking bullshit. No more you talking lies. No more you putting me down. Deceptive blue eyes. Wake up and smell the coffee. Wake up. Taxis waiting down on the street, so hurry up, I have to go. Looking round, you see other people making faces very cool. Carry me away, far from the circles that never breaks. Hey, hey, hey. Going home, but this road goes, I already know. Everybody cares for one another, and they take you to rest your sister. Ayo, 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 ayo. But the children run around, there's laughing in the crowd. I hope it still remains the same. Ayo. And there's something in the song that makes you feel at home, and that's what's calling out my name. Ayo, ayo. All up and they're ready for takeoff, so I can fly away. How she's getting small of the world. Not a sunny day, dreaming of me on stage. 5 years of age and I'm not afraid. Yeah. Going home. Well, this road goes, I already know. Where everybody cares for one another, and they take you as their brother. Ayo, 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 ayo. Well, the children run around, it's laughing in the crowd. I hope it still remains the same. Ayo, 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 ayo. Well, there's something in the song that makes you feel at home, and that's what's calling out my name. Ayo, ayo, oh. Would it take me and embrace me as your one? Would it take me and embrace me as your one? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
ladies and gentlemen, please do not forget to check the edu360 bookshop, where you get a lot of the materials and literature from the speakers and those who have contributed today, and of course throughout the duration of edu360. It's in the exhibition center. Just head over to the edu360 bookshop. And of course, we do have the edu360 official magazine unboxed, so you can also get a copy of that as well. It's discounted. It's discounted to free. So please find a way to get a copy of that. It's basically a compendium of all the activities and everything 360. You can also scan the back. There's a barcode at the back of the event program if you have a copy. It's basically a curated mix of articles, opinion pieces, real-life stories. If you have a mobile device, you just have your scanner and you can just scan to download. Or you can just head over to the edu360 Facebook and Instagram as well to check out more on that one. So I think that